Hey, everybody. Hope you are doing well. Listen, today I want to take a couple of minutes and talk about what's going on with Elon Musk. He's obviously kind of done an overhaul of the government. And for some people, it's like highly criticized. It's like they just don't think he needs to be dealing with this at all. Other people, it's like, hey, this is a dream that somebody's actually getting in, hands into the government and finding, parts of inefficiency financially and then correcting it. Elon Musk today actually said that if they don't stop him, he's about to find $1 trillion of misuse. Now, I don't know about you, but doesn't $1 trillion of misuse inside of the United States government seem like a lot? $1 trillion of misuse inside of the United States government. And I have the DOGE website up, and I can show you some of where they're finding things at or not. Some of them is like absolutely just utterly insane. And so I asked the question in the chat. It's like, do you like what Doge is doing? 70% of you say yes. 30% of you say no. If you're one of the people who are saying no, I'd like to know why. I'm assuming that if you're one of the people who are saying yes, I know why. It's because you're pretty frustrated with just the sheer amount of your tax-paying dollars that are going to fund like really weird things around the world, not even in the United States, but around the world. And it is in the United States too. I saw this. It's basically like a migrant facility for children in Texas that they'd spent $2 billion on, and they went in toward the facility, and it's completely empty and it's never been used. And so I'm wondering, it's like a building that they bought. It's not like one that they had to build from scratch. So I'm like, even if they built it from scratch, like the $2 billion, you can build, 5 or 10 skyscrapers in the city of Nashville. This wasn't a huge building. It was just like a normal sized building. So like, my question is then where did the money go? And I think the same thing can be said about a lot of the ways that money spent. I heard Stacey Abrams yesterday. She's the former mayor of Atlanta. She ran for governor of Georgia, almost won, but didn't win. Spent the past 2 years in 2023 and 2024 working for a nonprofit organization. And their job was to lower the utility cost of people that were living in southern Georgia in a rural community. I think the town was called DeSoto. It's a town of about 214 people. The government gave them $1.7 billion to do this. Now, I'm just telling, I've lived in a town of 200 people. Not very many people can say that they've lived in a town of 200 people. I grew up literally in a town of 200 people. And so in the town of 200 people that I grew up in, I could certainly reduce everybody's utilities by just paying for it. And then I'd still have $1.7 billion left over. I mean, what are you talking about? $200 a month for 200 people? What is that? $4,000 a month. So for 50 grand a year, so $100,000 a year, they could have drastically reduced. They could have drastically reduced the money that was spent. So what ends up happening though is that this money's not actually going to those people. They bought everybody in that entire town new appliances in their house that wanted it, and they watched people with high efficiency appliances have a lower utility bill. Great. If that's like a study and we need to do that, figure that out and try to figure out why people are stuck in poverty. And it's because they're using old appliances and maybe we could teach them how to get newer appliances that actually in the long run, it saves them more money. And there is some truth to that. Listen, I'm a fan of that. I'm a huge fan of that kind of a study. But it doesn't cost, $1.7 billion for that. So then you ask, where did the money go? Well, the money, hundreds of millions of it went into the pockets of Stacey Abrams and people like her that were running the programs. So, to me, when I'm thinking and looking at all of this from my perspective, it's like it's a very effective thing. We have Debbie on here saying he's stealing the money. Who is he? Who is he that's stealing? Who do you think is stealing the money? Like, do you think it's like Donald Trump is stealing money? You think Elon Musk is stealing the money? Elon Musk is worth $400 billion. He doesn't need to be stealing any money. That's the beauty of why he's in this position. He's the wealthiest person on the planet for a reason. He was the wealthiest person on the planet before he started helping with the Department of Government Efficiency, and he'll be the wealthiest person on the planet for a long time after that. And he had a deal that was done with the government involving Cybertrucks, like a $400 million purchase from the government for Cybertrucks. And I will say this: that deal was actually signed by Joe Biden. It wasn't signed by Donald Trump. And so there's not really a lot of crossover between the contracts that Elon Musk has already ongoing with the government and has had for many, 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 many years, um, as they are now. And another thing, Elon Musk is like a super guru genius. Like, do you realize that there's Americans who've been trapped in space for like 5 or 6 months now? And the only way that we're able to get them out is not from NASA. It's not from some other, country that has access to go to space and help us out. It's not from Jeff Bezos and Amazon's company that's shooting rockets. There's one person on the planet who actually has the capabilities to go and rescue these people, and it's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the person who could do it because his rocket company, SpaceX, has developed the kind of rocket that actually can go rescue and bring home. And it's the only safe way. It's literally the only safe way to do it. NASA has no capability to do that. And so he has innovation and he has inventions that are actually progressing and moving the ball forward. Like electric cars, as an example, which was a great experiment. In my opinion, was a great experiment to figure out if it actually is a viable solution to not just depend on fossil fuels for everything. For many, 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 many years prior to that, somebody had tried to create competition in the automotive industry. Nobody could do that before Elon Musk. Tesla is by far the largest car company in the planet. In fact, if you take every other car company in the United States and looked at their market share, it doesn't even equal the market share that Tesla has. That's how big of a percentage that the market share has. Where are the jobs going? To AI that Elon created. What do you mean? I don't understand where the jobs going. What jobs are we losing? What jobs are we losing? Donald Trump made an announcement yesterday where he said that because of these tariffs, there's going to be record number of jobs, and there already are in manufacturing industry across the United States. We saw that recently when we saw the largest chip manufacturer mention that he's about to invest billions and billions and billions of dollars into Arizona for new factories that are going to employ lots and lots and lots of people. So, I don't think we're in a situation where we're losing jobs. And one of the things that I've always thought was fascinating, tell me if you guys have noticed this too. Any time in history that there's some kind of like change in the way that people operate, sort of a revolution of sorts, people, and no offense against age, but it appears like younger people tend to embrace it and older people are frightened by it. And so then out of response, where, they kind of like pull back and get fearful. Like when the Industrial Revolution started, and all of a sudden they're going to have tractors that, that's going to be able to take care of, the fields or factories that are going to help manufacture products. It meant way high levels of efficiency. That product is going to be done faster. Farms are going to be taken care of, more effectively and efficiently. And everybody started freaking out, like, what's going to happen with all the jobs? What's going to happen with all the jobs? Well, there's always a new wave. There's a new evolution of job force that comes back. And so I don't think there's ever going to be a lack of work that needs to be done. There's going to be a type of intellectual work that increases, but there's always going to be manual work that has to be done. And so I'm not at all like, when people get concerned about the loss of jobs, I'm not at all concerned about that personally. There's always going to be jobs. Like in our country right now, it's like, it's not that people can't get a job. Like there's jobs everywhere. It's just people don't want to do the jobs that are available. Edie Ruth says, where are the Teslas? Everywhere I look, there's Teslas. It depends on the cities that you're in. But everywhere I go, I see a million Teslas on the road. But part of the reason why Tesla is so valuable is it's not only a vehicle company, but the technology that they put in their car holds intrinsic value. And so, there's a lot of a lot of things. So let's listen to this clip real fast.
I'm just here trying to make government more efficient, eliminate waste and fraud, and so far we're making good progress, actually. So our savings at this point exceed $4 billion a day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very significant.
You think you'll wind up getting to $1 trillion
Yeah.
of savings?
I mean, unless we're stopped, we will get to $1 trillion of savings.
And that stuff can be translated. I mean, we've been talking, we had Russell Vogt, the OMB director, on earlier, through very rescission authority, impoundment authority. But I believe you said earlier, it's an audit that will not gather dust on shelves. This is actually going to wind up with real savings, bend the spending baseline down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. If you look at Doge and spell it backwards, it's EGOD. What do you think about that? If you look at dog and spell it backwards, it's God. What do you think about that? Like, I don't think anything about it. It makes no sense. If you're trying to say that Doge has like some weird connection to take over as our God, like, I don't know. That's just a weird connection. Listen, I know too, just even talking about it, just reading through some of the comments, it's like we're diving into a story a little bit that seems like it's a little bit too good to be true. Like the richest man on the planet joins forces with the government that actually claim that they want to save money. Like that's what the Department of Government Efficiency is, nicknamed DOGE. And no, that's not a joke. And in a town where bureaucracies usually spend a lot and bloat a lot of money, having people actually say, and it's not just one person, it's an entire administration, it's the president and his cabinet, and it's Congress people and it's governors from around the country, that it's time for the government to slash costs and cut fat. In just a few weeks, it's saved hundreds of billions of dollars for our nation. In perspective, that's more cash. If you take, just for example, I'm on the website, there's $110 billion of savings that they found inside a Department of Health and Human Services so far, or maybe there's $105 billion saved total, I guess, overall. That's more money than all of the beer spend in America for an entire year. I mean, it's $105 billion is an eye-popping number. It's enough to give every man, woman, and child in this country a few $100 back. It's enough to buy a fleet of fancy private jets. Not that we need more of those. So what they're doing, in the name kind of is cheeky, right? But the stakes are huge. Washington's new efficiency crusader. And the question that I want to dive into tonight, are they truly delivering, or is it just some big shiny number on a press release? And so let's dig into it. So I'm on the DOGE website, and I'll put it on the screen in just a little bit. The estimated savings is $105 billion so far. And so the amount saved per taxpayer is $652, which is a significant amount. So it's taking this through a series of actions. And here's some of the series of actions. Workforce reductions, asset sales, contract cancellations. And it sounds like a miracle. In just 6 weeks, they've done what I thought would take an entire lifetime to do. And many of you thought maybe it'd be the same thing. So let's just ask the question, is the money that they're saving actually real money? Well, according to DOGE's self-reported figures, yes. According to other people that you read online, especially the liberal and dominant and legacy media, they're like, we're not so fast. You better hold up. So DOGE actually, everybody's like, you better show receipts. So they set up a wall of receipts on their website to prove that they have these savings. And guess what? Like, upon clear inspection, some of the receipts that we're seeing are actually pointing out to be positive. And we had a report today from Marco Rubio saying that they've decided to cut 83% of USAID funding. And these are programs that around the world were doing really weird things on American dimes. Like $54 million were going to Africa and the Middle East for condoms. Like, why is is there anybody in the chat right now that you want 54 million of your dollars actually supporting condoms in Africa and the Middle East? Like, is there anybody in the chat that you would say that? Like right now, put a 1 in the chat if you say, you know what, I do want my tax-paying dollars to go for condoms in Africa. Or put a 2 in the chat if you're like, no way on earth, I do not want that. I'm in that boat. I just don't want that personally. Amy Heights, Jennifer Swain. Jennifer Swain says, it's waste and fraud. I'm just done with how much the government is using our hard-earned money with no accountability. Go Elon Musk. That's the way I feel. And that's the same sentiment, Jennifer, that I think a lot of people are feeling right now. Cat Joy, woo-wee. You said, love the feller fams. You're amazing, Cat Joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And listen, we're being flooded with 2s in the chat. It's like, listen, we don't, nobody wants us to be spending our money on that kind of a thing. Nobody wants us spending our money on that thing. So how are they doing that? How is DOGE doing this? Well, their strategy's basically been grabbing the federal government by the ankles, picking it up, shaking it, and letting all of the waste kind of just fall out. So it means canceling contracts. It means, selling out off stuff. It means cutting jobs. Everything that they have to do to tighten their belts. Did you hear the story of how they were spending $600 on styrofoam coffee cups in the White House? Did you guys hear that? That the United States government, for a styrofoam coffee cup that's like $5 for a pack of 30 of them at Walmart, the United States government was spending $600 per styrofoam cup. Or did you know that the United States government spent $1,000 for toilet seats in their buildings? Like these people are just getting unnecessarily wealthy on the backs of your money and my money. And so DOGE is on a search and destroy mission for any expense that looks absurd. And according to their own report, the savings, they've come through workforce reductions, asset sales, and contract cancellations. In other words, fire people, sell stuff, stop buying stuff. It's aggressive spring cleaning that we need to have, because our government, it was so in debt, and that means we're so in debt. We're trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. And we every year create a budget that's actually bigger than the amount of money that we come in. Now, if you and I did that in our own household, if our household budget, if every month our expenses outweighed what we were bringing in, it's not sustainable. Like, you might do it for a while because you're borrowing money, you have a loan, or you have a credit card, or you have this, or you have that. But eventually the whole thing would crumble. And like, you see that people end up taking bankruptcy and having to take drastic measures in their life when things like that happen. But somehow the United States government has just been doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And so if we stay on this trajectory, it's like we're going to have a failed government system because we're going to be out of resources. So one of the major targets that they're going after is actually bloated contracts. DOGE has been tearing up federal contracts like they're last year's lottery tickets. Like, if a project or a deal looks overpriced or underperforming, Musk's efficiency hounds are trying to cancel it. And remember that $8 billion, or was it an $8 million contract error? Anybody remember that? It hints at what they're doing. They're combing through agreements and they're terminating ones that they think are wasteful. And it's things from like IT projects that nobody uses to consulting gigs of questionable value. It's for every single government employee having 3 subscriptions to news websites that none of them log on to. It's caterers who are charging $40 a muffin instead of $1 that it actually should cost. So they're slashing contracts, and DOGE is claiming that because they're doing it, the taxpayers are no longer having to foot the bill on unneeded and overpriced work. The government is finally saying, listen, we don't need to pay a dozen different contractors to just staple papers for us. Cancel, cut, save, repeat. Cancel, cut, save, repeat. That's the idea. And then here's the really big controversial part that's going on in the government right now: shrinking the federal workforce. And this is a bulldog reputation that DOGE has. It's very controversial because some people are not able to work anymore. They've been issued pink slips. Other people have left voluntarily. The government gave basically any non-essential government employee an opportunity to leave with 8 months of pay, which is a very generous severance package. We'll pay you for the next 8 months if you want to leave and go find another job somewhere. So far, since Donald Trump has taken over 100,000 workers have been shown the door. Roughly 75,000 of those are people who took the buyout package, which is either early retirement or that 8-month pay thing. And then about 25,000 employees were straight up fired or given termination notices. So let that sink in. 100,000 government bureaucrats gone, just like that. It's like, oh, it's almost like eliminating the entire population of a decent sized city and Americans, and it's just in America, it's just employees. It's as if, one day all of Boise, Idaho woke up and they found that their job was gone. So uh I don't know. That's not necessarily just trimming the fat. Some people would call that government liposuction. That's the level of strength that's going on. And Musk's team has taken a wrecking ball to parts of the federal bureaucracy. And in one report, it said that there was panic among 2.3 million civil servants that they're at the office cafeteria nervous about what's going to happen. And I get that, because they're having to retype their resumes and see if they have jobs. And people I know have been in situations where they've lost their jobs, and I feel very bad for them. I do. I really feel bad for them, and I hope that they find a way to land on their feet. But at the same time, I'm actually personally excited and happy that we're going to be in a situation where the United States government is going to be able to land on our feet again. And by the way, it's not just individuals being cut; whole entire agencies are getting the axe. DOGE marched into some departments and basically said, "Hey, you're done here." Like the United States Agency for International Development, the USAID, the outfit helped supposedly feed and aid the world's poor. And according to Elon Musk, they just need to close the doors, and every employee needs to be sent home. 83% of it, like I mentioned earlier, according to Marco Rubio, who's the acting director of it as Secretary of State, he mentioned today, 83% of it is actually for sure going to be cut. It's just unnecessary fat. There's another organization, I think, who's the one they call Pocahontas? Elizabeth Warren. She started this thing called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is an agency that's supposed to keep an eye on banks and lenders to protect us from financial shenanigans. That was shut down, and its staff was largely terminated. It sounds drastic, and that's because it is. DOGE is not just nibbling around the edges. It's taking huge bites. And each canceled program, each agency closed, each layoff represents an efficiency measure. I heard Elon Musk say this because I think a lot of people have the wrong idea that he's going in and making these directives and everybody has to listen. He's actually just going in and making suggestions, and the director of those programs either has to agree or disagree with his suggestion. And in some cases, they disagree and they're not followed through on. Elon Musk has no authority. He's just providing an assessment and giving a recommendation, and then those recommendations are either followed or not followed by the leader of that department. Now, because the leader of the departments have been appointed by Donald Trump, a lot of them are actually in situations where they're agreeing to it. And even for the departments and programs that survived that initial sort of like cutting, DOGE has them sweating. President Trump, who has empowered DOGE since day one of his term, signed an order telling every agency to come up with plans for large-scale reductions in their workforce. This is according to Reuters.com. Imagine like your boss telling you that you have to write a plan for a big chunk of your own team. Like, say you have to fire 70% or 50% of your team. In effect, that's what DOGE is doing. Like, hey, in order for you to justify your existence, then you need to line by line tell us, job by job, what's going on. It's like it's corporate restructuring, except it's applied to government, Uncle Sam's operations. Like, hey, you need a new computer system? Well, prove to us that you can't do without it. You want to keep that field office open? Show to us that it's absolutely necessary. Every dollar spent must be defended. This is like Spartan level budget discipline. And on paper, that's exactly what many taxpayers have long wanted. Make the government run like a lean business. But in practice, it turns into a cascade of tough choices. Cancel that contract. But then what service or capability did you lose? Fire those workers. But who's left to do their work? Sell those buildings. But where do you put the staff that remain? And DOGE's answer simply is like, it's not my problem. We're here to cut costs, period. Bold, yes. Efficient, possibly. Painful, definitely. Necessary, probably. Now, you didn't think all this was happening without screaming and yelling, did you? I mean, this is Washington, D.C., and every action has an equal and opposite reaction in a lawsuit or three. So while DOGE has been swinging the axe, the blowback has been fierce. Critics are howling in the rush to cut costs. DOGE is also cutting deep into the bone, wiping out programs and offices that serve the public. When U.S. aid was shuttered, for instance, humanitarian groups and lawmakers around the world cried foul, saying that we've just abdicated Americans' role in helping the world's needy. Which, listen, I'm fine with having that role personally if we're the a beacon of hope to the world over and we're the greatest example of democracy and freedom for people who've never experienced it. And we're the wealthiest nation on the planet, that our GDP is much higher than any other place on the face of the earth. And we can take our overflow, if we had it, and give to people in need and help bring stability. Listen, I'm totally for that. But when we understand line by line what's been going on in these programs, that's not what's been happening. Like when the CFPB was killed, consumer advocates warned that ordinary Americans just lost their financial watchdog. The very bureau that's been reining in abusive leaders, they said, was taken out back and shot. Now, personally, I don't see it that way. I see it just as contentious, politics. Supporters like me of DOGE, many of them who are fiscal conservatives, and certainly those in the Trump administration, are arguing that this is long overdue medicine to save a flailing financial situation and the federal government that's long been bloated, inefficient mess for years, knowing that it takes a disruptive force like an outsider with Musk with a mandate and a political heavyweight from Trump to finally fix it. Yes, it's disruptive, they'll admit, but it's necessary. And as one public policy professor put it, it's that DOGE manages to slash costs without significantly cutting things that people care about. And if they do that, this is going to be a winner for the Republican Party. In fact, I saw one political science professor saying that if DOGE is effective in doing what they're doing, which is cutting programs that Americans, by and large, like 80% agree with being cut, if DOGE continues to cut programs like that, it could be 20 years before there's a Democrat president again. And listen, that's a big if, of course, but it captures the hope. Trim the fat and leave the muscle. Now, on the flip side, critics say that this is vandalism masquerading as reform, and they argue that DOGE isn't wielding a scalpel, that it instead is swinging a chainsaw, and valuable programs are being indiscriminately cut down alongside any actual waste. And they warn that they think there's too much power consecrating in Musk's hand, who's just a private citizen that happens to have enormous business interests. And they think that that's a recipe for corruption, like essentially letting a billionaire rewrite government. Maybe there's truth to that. And so, Trump has to be the one ultimately overseeing that. And we have to trust that Donald Trump is keeping an eye on it, along with other people that are beside him that we can trust, like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, and, Attorney General Bondi. So there's a lot going on with all the drama. And let me ask you this question. What do you think the American people think? Do you think that by and large, the American people like what's going on, or do you think they don't like it? Put a 1 in the chat if you think by and large, the American people like what's going on. Put a 2 in the chat if you say, no, they don't like it. Amy Heights, and Jennifer Swain, thank you so much for your support. We're going for 12 on our super sticker train. I think how many we got? Like 7 left to reach our goal. Okay. Okay. So a lot of you guys are saying in the chat right now, you're putting 1s in the chat. You're saying you think that the American people want this. Lots of 1s coming through. Well, it depends on who you ask, or I would say it depends on how you ask the question. Start with the broad strokes. Americans actually love the idea of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. There was a poll, and it's actually blowing CNN's mind, where 60% of people who answered in the poll said that they like the idea of downsizing the federal government. How crazy is that? And 54% of people actually agree that Elon Musk is the man to do it. 54% of Americans agree that Elon Musk is the right man to do it. So to me, that's a huge majority. I know it's only 54%, but that means 46 or 44% or 43% disagree with it. So if you have 56% of people in America or 54% of people in America that are agreeing to something, that's crazy to me. That's like a huge majority. It's more points than, Donald Trump won an election by far. So is it a revolutionary government new era, or is this just a Doge and pony show? After all the bold announcements, the dramatic cuts, the cheers and the jeers, where do we land? Is Doge truly revolutionizing how government works, proving that Washington can learn new tricks? Or is this just another high profile experiment that might end up in a flashy footnote history book someday? The answer, as frustrating as it is still in the making. There's no doubt that Doge has shaken things up. In a matter of weeks, it has done things that past reformers have only dreamed of and threatened in their campaign speeches. And it's put a spotlight on wasteful spending in the United States government like never before. It's put fear to the hearts of agency bosses who grew too comfortable. A government that's long been the butt of jokes for paying $500 for a hammer is suddenly scrambling to account for every dollar. That's new. And that's revolutionary in some sense. And if indeed even a fraction of that $105 billion is real, that's serious money saved. It's the kind of savings that, in theory, could be returned to taxpayers and used to pay down debt and help with student loans and reallocated to programs that really matter and are making a difference. And it shows the potential of what hard-nosed efficiency drive could achieve. Imagine if it actually hit the loftier goal. Like there's talk that Doge wants to get to $1 trillion by the end of the year, which is an almost unthinkable sum. And if it all came true, Doge wouldn't just be a revolution, it'd be a fiscal earthquake, and it would reshape the government for a generation. But, and there's always a but, the challenges and skepticisms are just as large. A lot of Doge's savings are projections on paper, and we've seen some errors and exaggerations along the way. It's one thing to claim that there's billions of dollars saved, and it's another thing to have independent auditors come in and confirm it. And beyond the balance sheet, there's the question of what's been lost in the process, because while efficiency is great, it's not, if it guts the essential services or undermines the very purpose of the government. If your $105 billion of savings come at the cost of, say, a functional Social Security program or accurate weather forecasts, or oversight of banks, then the public might feel like they've received a nasty bite. There's 50% of Americans that worry that there could be some delay or harm to benefits that they're receiving through Social Security. And I understand why they feel that way. I don't think that those worries are going to vanish, but I also don't think that they have anything to worry about. But when you're living paycheck to paycheck, when you're living meal to meal, when you're living doctor's appointment to pharmacy pickup, the true test to be whether, Doge's cuts are really just trimming fat, or if it does sneak into some areas of everyday Americans' life. And at the end of the day, Doge presents a little bit of a paradox, a new bureaucracy created to destroy an old bureaucracy. It's ironic. It's bold. It makes great headlines. It gives us something to talk about tonight. And it's given huge numbers of marvel at, and there's plenty of fireworks. One thing's for sure. Doge has our attention. Love it or hate it. And it's a grand experiment in doing government differently. If it succeeds, it could rewrite the playbook in Washington, D.C. It could save each of us a nice chunk of change. But if it fails, it will join the long list of well-intentioned reforms that didn't survive, that didn't keep up with reality. As an opinionated observer who really likes the idea of not wasting money, I'm rooting for the good parts. I'm believing that true waste elimination is happening. But I'm also keeping an eye on the excesses and if there's errors. In other words, in the way Ronald Reagan would have put it, trust but verify. Trust but verify. So is Doge truly revolutionizing government efficiency, or is it just another bureaucratic experiment with flashy numbers and a cute acronym? The jury's out. But either way, we've never seen a dog or Doge quite like this in the federal kennel. We'll keep our eyes on it. We'll keep talking about it. We'll keep doing streams about it. And we'll do everything that we can to make sure that we're talking about this in a really in an unbiased way. Jennifer Swain, thank you so much for that super sticker. You people are crazy if you're supporting this hijacking of our government. I think I just gave a really fair pro and con of the whole thing. Would you guys agree that I just gave a pretty fair pro and con of the entire thing? I don't consider it a hijacking of our government because, like I said, Elon Musk is actually in a situation where he's not able to come in and say this has to be done. He's making recommendations, and the leaders of those departments have to agree whether or not they're following through on those. It would be one thing if he has like dictator level authority, but he doesn't. He gets to come in, suggestion, recommend changes, and people have to either follow through with it or not. I don't personally see it as a government takeover. In fact, what I see is that the government's listened to the people, and the people, the people that I do life with every single day. Many of you in the chat have been frustrated in the sense that you know that your dollars that should be going to pay off debt, that should be going to create a better life, maybe pave some sidewalks or a road where you live and fill in the potholes, take care of our infrastructure. There's parts of you that are like, yeah, for me, I'm frustrated that we were buying condoms in Africa. And I'm frustrated that we were doing transgender surgery reassignments for children in India. And you're kind of like in this situation, like, yeah. K-Me makes a great point. Hijacking is sending billions of dollars to a warmonger. I think we've sent $350 billion to Ukraine. They've lost half of that. And so you make a great point, K-Me. Thank you for that. I heard Tucker Carlson talking about how he was like in Switzerland, and it was, the whole place was filled with Ukrainians lavishly spending money on luxury goods. I mean, watches and Hermes and, you know, some of the top luxury stores. And he's like, whose money do you think that these Ukrainians are spending? And where do you think they got it all of a sudden? Yeah, they lost $150 billion that we sent to the Ukraine was basically written as the most corrupt nation on the planet, and we send them $350 billion, and then they say they've lost $100 and something billion of it. There, and Amy makes another great point. They've sold weapons that we sent them to the cartel in Mexico. It's not, you know, it's not even like a question of whether or not it happened. We know that Ukraine has sold some of the weapons that we sold them to the cartel in Mexico, a cartel that now we basically declared war with. So you make a great point, Kami. And all these people who are saying like we need to endlessly support Ukraine, I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I'm with Donald Trump 100%, wholly and totally, that we need to be in a situation where, you know, we are, and you guys tell me what you think. Like, but I'm in a situation where wholly and totally, I feel like we need to fight for peace. Like, I'm not on Russia's side. I'm not on Ukraine's side. I'm on the side of peace. I'm on the side of the Lord. I'm on, you know, I'm on the side of the loss of life. I've shared it many times on this stream, but I've actually been in a situation where I saw with my own eyes some of the devastation of what happened in Israel in the war with Palestine or Gaza or Hamas. And the loss of life is unfathomable. The evil behind it and the intent in their heart for what they're doing is, you know, unquestionable. And so for me, like the thing that I'm in favor of, it's like, I have no vested interest in Russia or Ukraine. I have an interest in peace, and I have an interest in the national security for the future of my family in the United States. That's what I like. For me, that's what I want. You know, I want our nation to be as safe as possible and as prosperous as possible for as long as possible. And I don't see us intervening in Ukraine as a helpful tool to ultimately reach that goal. If you agree with me, say amen.
As government waste, the Department of Veterans Affairs is looking to cut thousands of jobs, and Democrats do not like it.
They're going to gut the Department of Veterans Affairs, jeopardizing the health and well-being of millions of veterans.
I go to the VA myself, so I see every day the waiting lists, the long lines to get care, how long it takes to get an appointment. All of that is going to get worse.
Cutting the VA and some of the proposals I've seen are going to hurt service to veterans. So let's agree that that's a bad idea, bipartisan. It's a bad idea to do that.
Really? But the administration says this move is necessary to get better, to get more efficient, and to get better treatment for the veterans. Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins, joins us now, who also still serving in the reserves. Mr. Secretary, your thoughts about the Democrats who says it's wrong to cut back at the VA?
Let's take off what Ms. Logan just said. Let's all agree on something. That for the past 10 years, the GAO has reported that the VA healthcare has been at a high risk. In other words, they're high risk and on the high risk list for not only the possibility of fraud, waste, and abuse, but also in patient quality, patient care. This has been going on for 10 years.
Listen, I hate the idea of not giving our veterans everything they need to have a successful life during and after their service. The 15% that they're talking about cutting doesn't impact or affect that. And that's what I think happens sometimes is like the talking points is like it gets out of whack. It's like, yeah, that 15% of people probably need to be cut because it just like that guy mentioned, they're at high risk of government overreach and misuse of funds. Amy says, I so much appreciate these streams and seeing you all. I know I haven't been streaming that much lately for a variety of reasons. And I don't know. I want to stream more, and I hope people want to support that and believe in what we're doing and want to come alongside and help us. Amy, we've been doing this 40 months. That's almost 4 years. And I do it every day for at least 3 years of that, almost 5 days a week at least for over 3 years. That's a lot of YouTube videos. So I miss the streams, and I'm hoping to start doing them more regularly again after a little breather that I took. But I always made it like the number one priority thing that I was doing. And I've just kind of shifted that around a little bit, other than Faith Friday. I don't think we've missed Faith Friday at all. But it takes all of us coming together and believing in it and still wanting to be a part of what we're doing. And, that can be a really hard thing. And I understand that's not everybody can't do that and don't want to do that. I get that. So, Amy Heights, you said, love y'all so long. And you've been sick. So, but congrats to you. You've actually been a member longer than me. I've only been a member for 39 months. I mean, I've been a dreamer for 39 months. So you've been a member of this channel longer than me. Deborah Lee's been with us for 32 months. Oh my gosh. You said, I love you and the Feller fam. We love you. So
good morning and welcome to Rising, and let there be light, because we are now in what I don't remember if it's daylight savings time or undaylight savings time, whatever it is.
We've sprung forward.
We now have another hour of pleasant daylight in the evening, which I love. Sagar Enjeti, the former host of this show, is a vocal opponent of this regime. I think he believes that more sunny time in the evenings is bad for families and contributes to people like having a long happy hour or something. But I love happy hour and am very in favor of not, I hate when you leave the office and it's dark out already. It's terrible.
Not good.
So I'm in a pleasant mood. How about you?
I'm in favor of abolishing the savings time thing.
That's what's elevated your spirits, Robbie.
Temporarily.
I did not know there was this division of opinion on the right of daylight savings time. I am in equally good spirits and glad to get started with another busy day, busy week. So what is on your radar?
Well, we're going to end up fighting about this one, Niall. Let's get to it. One of the most frequently recurring revelations of the last several years is that the mainstream media is desperately out of touch with ordinary Americans. Our elite commentator class reflexively trusts the expert consensus, even when experts discredit themselves, as they did with COVID. The consensus wants to promote progressive social and cultural policies that vast majorities of people find deeply off-putting, and they display an endless appetite for American military interventionism in far-flung regions of the earth. The voters keep trying to tell the people in charge they just want America first. They want to be largely left alone. They don't want language and behavior overly policed. They want a social safety net and for government to, yes, prioritize fixing problems at home, not try to become the world policeman or send billions of dollars overseas for unclear madness. This is not what they voted for, and on and on and on it goes. There's only one way to settle this, of course. Let's actually do a poll. CNN pollster Harry Enton, a mainstream media figure who actually just does his job and does it quite well, reports the facts that he gathers. Well, he parsed the numbers, and guess what? Take a look.
This to me was one of the more shocking figures that I saw. Made me go, wait a minute, hold on one second. Whoa, Americans on Trump and Joe's efforts. Musk and DOGE should influence government spending and operations. Look at this. 54%. The majority say that he and they should. How about approve of Trump trying to cut staff at government agencies? Again, you get a majority here, 51%. So yeah, Elon Musk might not be that popular, but these cuts and the idea of spending cuts, at least within the federal government and cutting at government agencies, that actually has majority support. I was truly surprised by this, Kate, but the numbers are the numbers.
Well, there is a view that cuts across Democrat and Republican of people thinking that Washington is too big, bloated federal government, waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, those are drain the swamp is what people run on over and over again. How do they feel? What do they think they're actually cutting?
Yeah, what do they think they're actually cutting? Democrats want to argue that the type of spending that Musk is cutting is mainly necessary programs, but that comes in at just 36%. The wasteful spending actually wins the plurality here at 42%, according to a recent Washington Post Ipsos poll. And I think that is the reason why you see that when it comes to Musk and DOGE, you see, in fact, the majority believe he should have some influence because.
I mean, you're seeing CNN shocked that Donald Trump is in a situation with DOGE that the American people support. Like CNN cannot, it's like, what's wrong with legacy and dominant media? Because it's gotten to such a point that like they can't even comprehend in their minds the fact that the United States is in a situation that we finally have leadership that is reflecting the sentiment of the people. I mean, it's absurd. I saw a statistic today on like the whole transgender women in sports thing. Like 80% of Americans actually agree that there should not be biological males playing women's sports. 80% of Americans. And yet Kamala Harris was a huge fan of in supporting it still. Why would you do that? I don't get it. Why would you do that if 80% of Americans feel a certain way about it? Kat Joy, you said, hope it works. It worked. Thank you for your support. I think we're still like a few away from our super sticker goal. I lost track, but Amy Heights might know. I think we're like maybe 3 away from our super sticker goal, but thank you, Kat Joy, for helping us out on that one.
They believe, the plurality believe, that he is cutting wasteful spending, not necessary programs that Democrats are arguing.
Survey says a majority of people agree with Trump and Elon that DOGE is doing important work. Dusk and Moj. 54% want Elon to continue to influence public policy. 51% want the dynamic duo to cut government agency. Now, look, it's true. 51% is not some massive supermajority in our polarized times. It's actually hard to get a supermajority for anything, frankly. Keep in mind, though, Trump's popular vote win, it was just about 50%. Actually, it was a smidge under at 49.8%, according to the latest numbers I could find. So the media's narrative.
Elon Musk did an interview about 4 hours ago. Let's hear what
All right, welcome to the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, chair of X Corp. Elon, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I want to begin, but among other things, everyone's attacking you for your position. What are you doing in the government? There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced.
Yes.
It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
Oh, well, so that's your suspicion. Is the website, is the internet up? Is it up yet?
It's up, yeah.
It's up yet. Okay, good. But I just was looking back. Let me see if I get this right. They're setting fire to various Tesla charging stations near Boston.
When you see somebody who's being so viciously attacked by people in the world, does it make you think, oh, he must be really that bad? Or does it make you think, maybe he's on the right side and people are trying to stop him? Like the whole nation of Ukraine tried to take out Twitter today or X today because, because of why. I'm not even going to say. You can determine why you think, given the circumstances between Russia and Ukraine, Donald Trump, and what's going on there. And then on top of that, on the American soil, they're trying to burn down Tesla charging stations.
Shots were fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Various nonviolent.
Shots fired, not a metaphor.
Shots fired, yes. Downtown New York, marching against the Tesla showroom. Your stock is way down. You've been criticized left and right.
But look on the bright side.
I mean, why are you doing this?
Always look on the bright side of life.
Yes, I'm an optimist.
Yeah. But besides that,
yes. I mean,
how's your day?
What motivates you to do this?
Was the opera good?
It's tough sledding.
Yeah, it is tough sledding. But I think we're doing the right thing here. There's been a tremendous amount of waste and fraud in the government. When you're part of the government, you saw a lot of that, and there's been if you look at the Inspector General reports and the Government Accountability Office, there have been many audits that have pointed out that there's a tremendous amount of waste and fraud in the government. In fact, there was a report issued by the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, last year. So during the Biden administration, which estimated the federal government fraud to be $500 billion. So just to be clear, that's not a Trump administration thing, that's a Biden administration thing. So what we're trying to do is get that number down to a much smaller figure, save money for the American taxpayer, stop money being spent on things that I think very few taxpayers would agree make sense. Transgender animal surgeries, or why are we spending money? Why are American tax dollars being spent on this? The president's gone through a long list of absurd things. Why are the 20 million people who are definitely dead marked as alive in the Social Security database? Why were hundreds of millions of dollars of...
That's a great point that he's making. There's a ton of people receiving, Social Security that were dead. Would you guys consider that a waste of money? Yes or no? By the way, Jennifer Swain, Cat Joy, thank you so much for that amazing support. Another one from Cat Joy. You guys are rocking and rolling it. And I have no idea where we're at on the goal, but I think we're getting close. I think it was a waste. If we're paying benefits to people that are dead, how does that make sense?
Small Business Administration loans were given out to people aged 11 and under, according to the Social Security. I mean, these must be some very enterprising 8-year-olds,
And some pretty strong 150-year-olds.
Yes, exactly. As the president said, we have an enormous number of people marked as alive who are 160. He didn't know the country was that healthy.
Yes. So demystify this. How do you do it? Okay. How big is your team?
Yeah.
Where'd you recruit most of them from? And what is it that makes you choose, the Treasury or Social Security or USAID? How does it work? Let the public know, please.
Right. Well, we just basically follow the money. We look at the president's executive orders, and we also just follow the money. So we started looking closely at USAID because they were completely violating the president's executive orders to suspend foreign aid, what's called foreign aid, but in our view is a lot of corruption. So what we saw there is just a tremendous amount of money being sent to non-governmental organizations. But actually, this, by the way, is I think one of the biggest sources of fraud in the world is government-funded non-governmental organizations. This is a gigantic fraud loophole where the government can give money to an NGO and then that there are no controls over that NGO. So they've given billions of dollars, in fact, we estimate tens of billions of dollars to NGOs that are essentially scams.
Mm-hmm. By the way,
I'm trying to put a stop to that. So
I don't want to interrupt, but Secretary of State Rubio just come out. I think he tweeted today. He has accepted over 80% of your recommendations to shut down in USAID.
Right.
So your review and analysis was spot on.
Yes. So I think when people criticize, say, what DOGE is doing, we say, well, which part specifically? Because we put all of the actions of the DOGE team on the doge.gov website and on the DOGE handle on X. So we post the receipts. So it's like this action has been taken, this action has been taken. So when we get criticism, we say like, of what? Which line do you disagree with? Like which cost saving do you disagree with? And then people usually can't think of any.
No.
So
it's a great point. Like he's given us fuel for conversation, which is so important, because you're going to have friends inevitably that are going to come to you and be like, oh, I can't stand DOGE. I hate DOGE, blah, 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 blah. Elon Musk say, well, ask him which line item that DOGE recommended get cut do you wish didn't get cut?
Transparent line by line.
It's transparent line by line.
Which is quite remarkable.
Right. And so, and then with respect to the Treasury, for example, the two main recommendations we suggested, which have now been implemented, was that any payments going out of the Treasury, especially the Treasury's main payment computer, which is called PAM, things like payments account manager or something like that, but it's like almost $5 trillion a year, so about $1 billion an hour, that the payments be coded with the congressional appropriation, and that there be an explanation for the payment. Very basic stuff. And just doing that, we estimate will save $100 billion a year.
You're not really, let me see if I get this right, particularly with Social Security, you're not really changing policy.
No,
You're auditing the fiscal mechanisms to make sure that, from point A gets to point B, and that's where it's supposed to get to. In some cases, it doesn't get there, or in some cases, it may go over there. But it's not a policy exercise. You're not changing laws. You're just doing what any business would do in a profit and loss audit.
I think we're really what we're adding here is caring and competence. And there's a massive amount of fraud of basically people submitting Social Security numbers for Social Security benefits, unemployment, Small Business Administration loans, and medical, where those are fake Social Security numbers, or they've stolen somebody else's Social Security number, and we're trying to put a stop to all of that. And that's the number which is estimated to be on the order of 10% of federal expenditures, which is, half a $1 trillion.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
You're working with the agency heads. You're working with the cabinet secretaries.
Yes.
I saw Howard Lutnick was on TV yesterday saying you were partnering with them. Is that fair?
Yeah. What we do is in consultation with the cabinet secretaries and with their departments. So we're really trying to be we'll refer to ourselves as tech support.
Mm-hmm.
We're really helping the department get a handle on things, because what actually happens here is you've got this sort of vast federal bureaucracy, and then you've got a very thin layer on top of the politically appointed officials, and what tends to happen is that the bureaucracy, frankly, is in control. And they largely ignore the politically appointed people.
Why should the bureaucracy?
I'm sure you must have seen that.
I've lived with this twice. I
Yeah.
worked for Reagan many years ago, and I worked for Trump in the first term.
Yeah.
It's like a permanent bureaucracy. I might add, it's a permanently liberal bureaucracy.
Yes, very much so.
And it's not a bureaucracy that necessarily enforces or implements presidential policy.
They don't. In fact, they try their best to thwart presidential policy. So the president is the elected representative of the people. And if the president cannot get things implemented as a reflection of the will of the people, then what we have is not a democracy. We have a bureaucracy. We have rule of the bureau, not rule of the people.
Edie Ruth, I hear you say that you were thinking he's getting his benefits potentially cut. Let me put it on the screen and just show you what's being cut from the Veterans Affairs, that, just as an example. So they cut out of the Department of Veteran Affairs the LGBTQ database. Like, do you think that they should be spending, do you think that the government should be spending $73,000 to have a gay database for veterans? Let me see what this one is. This one is called an award. So this is almost $200,000 being cut for employees that had subscriptions to like the New York Times. Like, I'm okay with that being cut. Let me see what this is. Government plus membership. This website literally tells you what's being cut. So you can get on here and see. This is not a full cut. This is just a modification. And this is just cutting the excess off of membership fees for some kind of thing called Government Plus. It doesn't impact it. Actually, this one's $17 million, so that's probably one we can look at. Support services blanket agreement, HRO, leadership training. So this was terminated from Fairfax, Virginia's VA office, $17 million. This is for coaching, like coaching of employees. So I'm okay with that being cut. This is not, the money that's being cut is not impacting individual, you know what I mean? The money that's being cut is not impacting individuals that are receiving benefits. $37 million in strategic communication and change management services. That's just consultants. That outside consultants were getting paid $37 million. $50 million being cut in a BPA order. I'm just kind of looking at the big ones. $144 million cut for integrated health transformation task order. So this is for the veteran to appeal certain, and it went to Aptive Height LLC. So it wasn't even going to, like, again, benefits. It was going to a government lobby firm to go and help them to appeal policy that they disagreed with. Again, management services for $85 million that's cut. And it went to enterprise resource. I mean, you get what I'm saying? Like, a lot of this money that's being cut, it's not impacting the individual benefits. That's what we were trying to say. I mean, this, again, to me, it's insane, some of this stuff. So I'm not going to continue to go through all of it, but it's like, to me, it's like, none of this stuff that's being cut, do I disagree with it being cut? Here's $240 million being cut for just research around the military records. Like, why is a company called Lafont LLC getting paid $250 million to study military records. And then you go to their website and they do marketing. So they were paying this firm $250 million in a marketing contract. That just doesn't make sense to me. You know, when I'm looking at all of these costs, it's just, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. So you can go to DOGE, the website is doge.gov, doge.gov. And when you're going through it line by line, you're kind of like, man, there's on this website, there's not anything that I disagree with being cut, at least from my perspective. So that's all we have time for today. This is your last chance, though. If you want to support by gifting a membership, by becoming a member, or if you want to send a final super sticker or super chat, listen, every single dollar makes a huge difference. We haven't really streamed that much in the past month. And so we have a lot of ground to make up if you're willing to help in that way. We want to give you an opportunity to do so. I'm going to pray for us, though, pray for our nation, and pray for every person watching as we end our stream out today. So, Lord, we love you. God, I thank you for every single person that you have brought to the stream today. Lord, as we're even trying to make sense of what's happening in our culture, God, I pray you give us wisdom and discernment on to know which things are pleasing to your heart and which things are displeasing. And ultimately, God, your word says you're the one who puts leaders in office, and you've anointed our leaders in office right now. And Lord, I pray you protect them and cover them and help them, God, to be the best leaders that they're supposed to be for this season. And Lord, I pray that there will be revival that's ushered in on the planet right now. That as Christians and believers, that our job's not actually to look to Washington, D.C. as a source of hope, but instead, God's to look to you. And so I pray, God, we're in a season where we're actually looking to you. And so I bless everybody watching. And Lord, I thank you for helping us keep our attention on you. In Jesus' name, amen, 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 amen. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I agree with Amy Heights when you're going line by line. Everything that it seems like they're cutting, and you can literally go line by line if you want. It's all garbage that they're cutting. So I agree with that. Jennifer Swain says, I know taxes are needed, but the ridiculous excess is sickening and streamlining is needed. Rightio on that one. I mean, Donald Trump has mentioned maybe he'd get rid of the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS. And start a new one called the External Revenue Service and talk about how we can get our resources from an outside source. So I like that. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And that's all we have time for today. We'll be back again very, very, very soon.